Welcome back to the Tool Crib. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you'll no doubt know that I'm a huge fan of KNIPEX tools. Some of these tools I've had for a decade or better, some of them 5 or 6 years, others are relatively new. But one thing that has always remained constant with KNIPEX tools is that everything I've got I've been incredibly impressed with, and they just work and they work well. Now for the DIYer or the guy that's going to be using these types of tools occasionally, they could probably be a little cost prohibitive, and I understand that. There's a lot cheaper options out there, but when it comes to quality, nothing, and I mean nothing, beats KNIPEX. Two that I use the most are going to be the Cobra pliers in the 250 and the pliers wrenches in the 250. I also carry, on occasion, when it necessitates it, I have the 7-inch version of the pliers wrenches that I carry on my person. Now, the newest thing that I'm adding to the arsenal is their wire stripping tool, and I decided to get this one in their comfort grip handles. This one is the 1372-8, and I have been really impressed with this tool. I don't know why it took me so long to purchase this one. I guess the biggest thing for me is because I work in commercial, and a lot of the electrical repairs that I do are in commercial electric. The fact that it doesn't have a 10 gauge stranded wire cutter is something that was probably the tipping point for a long time. But I'm well aware of the quality of KNIPEX, and so I finally decided to purchase it. And I'm really glad I did. Now, like I mentioned before, because I do a lot of commercial repair, two of my favorites are Klein tools. These are the curved models. This is their smaller one and their more heavy-duty version. And you can see that both of these do include 10 gauge stranded wire strippers. And so I've been really happy with Klein tools. But after getting this one has some advantages over the Klein's. The quality is just, in fact, I'll just show you the difference in the quality. So I have some 14 gauge THHN, and THHN is a wire that I probably work with more than anything else. I don't work with a lot of solid wire. Most of my stuff is in stranded. Now, I like this particular set of Klein curve because they are spring loaded, and because they have the 10 gauge, like I mentioned before, for stranded wire cutters. So this one is 14 gauge, and this one works pretty well on this type of wire. It does a really clean job of getting the insulation cut on it, and the PVC coating that in the nylon that they have on this can be troublesome at times. Sometimes you have to use kind of special techniques. Sometimes you have to twist them to get all that off. And this is kind of evident with this pair. This is a little bit more difficult. I don't know why these particular strippers just don't strip as well as the smaller version, but sometimes I struggle getting that off. You can see it does a clean cut, and there's nothing really wrong with the quality. It's just that sometimes it just doesn't come off as cleanly as I would like. Now, with this particular pair of wire strippers, if we put that on their 14 gauge strander, which their stranded is on this side, you see just how smooth and how clean of a wire strip this thing does. And their cutters, which I've used a lot of. In fact, some of those tools that I was showing you earlier are their cutters, so especially their step cutters for cutting through larger cable, are just fantastic. These things slice through Romex like nobody's business. So the Romex that I have here is 10-2, so this is a little bigger than what I mean, there are some things in household that run 10-2, but this is a little larger than what you'll find most of the time. Usually it's 12 and 14 gauge that you're working with. Now, this is one of my favorite pair of wire strippers, but it really struggles. In fact, it can't even get through this 10-2. I could put a lot of pressure behind it, and it just simply won't get through. And now it's actually jammed the pliers up, and so I have to work these free in order to get the spring load to come back on them. So as much as I favor Klein tools, they just don't do as good a job on this type of stuff. Now, they're more heavy duty, still can't get through it. This is where where KNIPEX really shines, because they have that step cut in them, and they are just ultra sharp. Watch how smooth this is. That is fantastic. The difference in quality between these two is pretty evident. Now, if this had up to 10 gauge stranded, it would be absolutely ideal. Now, another thing that this one does a little differently, you'll notice that this one doesn't have loop bending holes like some of these others. So let me close that up. If we do a loop bend in these, that's pretty easy to do. With this one, it's in the pliers themselves. They have a place in the center there where it's more to grab onto these types of on solid wire to make your loop. So it does a nice job on them. It just makes a little larger loop. But I don't really have a complaint with that because I don't do a lot of solid wire work, except for, you know, my own personal at home when I'm redoing a circuit or putting something in, changing out a switch, what have you. So that's not a huge deal for me. These things are absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love the dual position, or the dual, you know, you can lock the pliers and unlock them from either inside or outside, and that is just, they're just so smooth to use. It's one of the best pair of pliers that I've ever used, or best pair of wire strippers that I've ever used. Another thing is their bolt strippers, or their bolt shears, I'm sorry, for their 832 and their 632. Let me go get a couple bolts and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I've got a 632 machine screw here, and to operate these with, to shear these with normal wire strippers like these Klein curves, one side is threaded, so you just kind of position this so that you thread the screw in, get it set to where you want it, and then you can shear it off, and then you take a screwdriver and you unthread it, because as it cuts it, it's going to leave a bit of a burr, and so when you unscrew it, it gets rid of that burr. And this is where KNIPEX really sets itself apart from even a good manufacturer like Klein. So with the KNIPEX, you'll notice, let me open that up, that these are not threaded. So you just slide the bolt into, you know, the machine screw into the position that you want it to get it set for the center there for wherever you want your cut, and then just squeeze. Now these cut so incredibly cleanly that now I can take this, and let me just open this one back up again, and I can thread it, if I can line it up, I can thread it back into the whatever I'm attaching to, whether that be to a box or switch or what have you, or back into this the Klein cutters as well. And I don't have to worry about the threads being at the shear point having a burr on it. They just work so cleanly, and this is one of the huge advantages that KNIPEX has over the Kleins. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to be getting rid of my Kleins, because frankly, I like this design. I wish KNIPEX would come out with a similar type design for a different set of wire strippers, because I would definitely purchase it. If this had 10 gauge stranded, it would probably relegate these to the toolbox as it is. It's definitely going to have a place in my Vito Pro Pack for sure, because they just work absolutely outstanding. KNIPEX quality is, they're just second to none. There's no other way to put it. At any rate, this is the KNIPEX 1372-8, the newest in my KNIPEX tool arsenal. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. I'll see you in the next one.